There are just so many things that you need to learn when you start beginning sewing. And through my own experience and through teaching, having taught sewing for a number of years now, it seems that we all tend to fall in the same patterns and we all make the same mistakes when we're learning to sew. Now, I have my top 5, well, it is actually 6, but 5 sounds better. Top mistakes that we all seem to make as new sewers, that these are the top 5 that when you start to realize how important these are and make some changes, you'll see instant improvements in your sewing and the finished garments that you end up making. Welcome back, my lovely ladies and gents. It is a pleasure to see your smiling faces here as always. Now, I have been teaching sewing for quite a while now. I am the creator of Vintage Sewing School, and even before that I was teaching in-person sewing classes and lessons. And it is through that experience and through my own experience that I really come to realize that we all make the same sort of mistakes in sewing. Like, we all make, it's the same ones that we just don't realize what we're doing at the time. I remember having these huge aha moments when it's like the clouds part and all of a sudden you can see the light and see the things that you were doing wrong and why you should do them differently. But it's not that you're doing anything bad, or, I mean, it is wrong in a way, but it's just that you just don't know. You're only learning. It's at this point that you haven't realized how important some of these things are that make such a difference to your end garments. And it is by obviously making these mistakes that we learn, and that is how we get better and better sewers, by making these mistakes, honestly. I actually came up with a huge long list of all of the little things that we do, but I thought I'd actually compile it down and shorten this one to the top 5 that really make the biggest impact, I think, that at least in my experience, and the things that really helped me once I sort of realized and began to understand these things, really improved my sewing. Now, on that bigger list, I think I'll do that a future video, but I would like your help with that, but we'll talk about that at the end. So get your pen and paper and take notes, because these are the things that I wish that someone had really told me or pushed upon me the importance of these things when I was learning to sew. So what are they? 5, 6, you get a bonus one, 6 things. And then after we go through the list, my advice on how to best overcome these and get better. Okay, first one is poor fabric choice. Yeah, so when we all begin, I remember making this mistake so many times. You just don't really realize the impact that fabric choice has on your garment. So not all patterns are designed for all fabrics. They are designed with a particular type of fabric in mind. And when you select just any fabric that you like that takes your fancy, which we tend to do, it might not suit the design, and it doesn't work very well, it doesn't look good, it just does not work. And then choosing poor fabric for your skill level. So I see so many times beginners picking up knit fabrics and chiffons or satins, something slippery, and just thinking it seems easy, it's just cotton t-shirt, right? Those of you that have sewn a little bit know that knit fabrics require a whole other set of skills. And slippery fabrics are, again, a whole separate thing on their own, and that is a challenge in itself, let alone just starting how to sew, understanding your machine, putting garments together. They're all different things to learn at different times. So choosing the correct fabric for both the design and your skill level is something that as I said, I did this so much when I was beginning. You just see something you like and you want to just make things that you like, and it just turns out horrible. So always pay attention to the suggestions that they make on fabrics on the back and stick to those types of fabrics for that particular design, and stick to nice easy things, or at least wherever your skill level is, stick to fabrics that are in there and you'll see much more success. The next one is not testing. So I really learnt this through my own trial and error, and it's something that I just do now as a standard on anything. And I wish that I had been told that how important this is, and it's just part of sewing. So what do I mean exactly? So I mean testing everything. So testing, getting the fabric that you're going to use, and test your stitches. Test the seam finish that you plan on doing on this particular fabric. Sew the seam you wish to sew and then test the seam finish. Are all the settings right? Do you need to do something different? How long are your stitches? All of that stuff. Figure all that out first. Test out the seam finish that you want to do on that fabric. So one, to test to see if it works on that fabric, and to test so that you get a little practice before you do the real thing. So test if you've got piping and you've never done it before, don't go straight and do it to your garment. I mean, we all do it first because we think what could go wrong, right? And then you realize there's at least 145 things that could go wrong. And that is why doing a test or a sample of everything. So if you've got piping, a zip, all of your stitches, all of your finishes, all these types of things, test them all before you actually do it on your real garment. Trust me, I still do this now because this is how important it is. I want it to be perfect before I go to my real one, and I'm sure that you do too. So think about just testing everything. And I know it seems a bit laborious at times. It might seem like you're doing extra or you just want to rush through things. I always think if you want better results, it's about slowing down and doing all the extra things that make the big difference. And for me, testing everything before I go to my real one to make sure I work out all the kinks was something I just really learned through trial and error to do. So not understanding grain line and cutting out your patterns therefore incorrectly is, I think, the next one that I see a lot of, actually most of all of new sewers make, because I did this one too. Patterns are like puzzle pieces and they all go together, but the importance of grain line when you're cutting out all of those pieces is just something, and this is something that when you're learning to sew, you just don't realize and understand how important the grain line of the fabric really is. And you don't know the impact that it has on your end garment. So this is what we all do. We've all done this, right? On our first or second or third pieces of garments that we make. You know, you have all your pattern pieces and you see they all fit in here, and then you see all these gaps in between all the pattern pieces and you think, what a waste. I'm just going to squish all of those together and twist them and turn them and just cram them all in so they use the least amount of fabric as possible, just willy-nilly, just jamming them all in because you think, what does that straight line even mean? Can't be that important. Probably not. Yeah, right? And we all know what happens after that. It turns out into a giant disaster that can't be fixed. There is no going back on that mistake, unfortunately. And that is a big practice run. So really, I will press upon, I always do, any new sewers, is to really understand what the grain line is. I actually have this video that I have made before on sort of more the terminology of what grain line is and what bias grain is in this other video. They'll help you understand more the terminology behind them, but really go further and understand how you want all of your pieces, each side of your garment, to be on the same grain line. Otherwise they're going to fall differently. On the bias, how will you get the stretch? On the straight grain, how it doesn't. All of these things make such a big difference, and it's something that we have absolutely no clue that is going on when we first start sewing, and it causes all kinds of dramas. So try not to do just cramming the puzzle pieces in. When you cut out all your pattern pieces, you must exactly measure, not just eyeball, but measure your grain line and make sure everything is perfectly on grain that the pattern has been designed to do before you go any further. So understanding, and notice, like, one of the things when you get good is when you know what the grain line does and what shifting it will actually do. That's how you, that's sort of next level, and you can really start creating things, you know, quite differently and understanding what it is you're doing with the grain line. Whew. The next thing is not reading the instructions all the way through first. So this is the sewing pattern instructions that is on a pattern envelope. So this one I really learnt through hard work and through not doing it. Of course, we all do. I make sure when I teach, and I stress upon all of my beginner sewers now because it was so important when I figured this out. It was like a light bulb moment. You really need to read through the instructions all the way through. Like, you need that 10,000 foot view of what it is that you're doing through the whole lot, so that all the little steps that you're doing along the way actually then make sense. So, I mean, imagine, you know, I'm in Australia here. Imagine if I just decided to go on a trip to Paris, France, and had no idea about the big picture view that I would have to take. If all I knew that was in front of me was like, go to my door, take a left turn, get in the car, then drive here, then go to the airport, and having no idea of what the end journey was going to be, it would be a lot more difficult, right? I wouldn't know that I actually needed to drive on the other side of the road when I get there, or something silly like that. Like needing an invisible zipper foot for the invisible zipper foot that you're going to put in your garment, for example. It's good to know everything ahead of time. Have that big picture view of the whole process that you're doing in order for all the little steps to make sense. And this is when it's really important, I think, to do this, to have this view all the time, because if you ever want to get really good at sewing and break free of the only use the pattern as it is instructed, etc., you want to break free of that and make your own choices on the order of construction, or make adjustments to your pattern and different things. You need to know the order of construction and the way things are made. And that means that you need to know the start to the end, the whole thing all the way through, to know all the little steps that lead up in the correct order to get there. So it's really important that you start doing this as a beginner, to see the whole process ahead of time. That way you'll really start to see that there is an order of construction. That's what it's called, the order of construction. You know, you need to do your darts first before you do your side seams, and you need to do those before you do your shoulder seams before you do any neckline finishes, etc., etc. So you'll see that there's a process, and it's the same kind of things that get done in the same order all the way across, and it's easier for you to put this together in your mind when you see that big picture view ahead of time. I wish someone had given me that advice when I first started sewing. Skipping steps. Oh boy, yes. You probably think I'm talking to you now, because we all try and do this at times. One of the things that we do when we're a beginner is we skip steps because we don't understand why we're doing them, and we don't realize how important they are. So skipping steps like stay stitching, like pressing, like seam finishes, you're getting the idea here. So one of the big ones is stay stitching, because I know I see everybody skipping this all of the time, and it causes, if you don't stay stitch it, then your neckline is probably going to stretch out of place, and then your band or your facing or whatever you're putting on top of it doesn't fit, and then it's all puckery, and then it just snowballs into more and more things go wrong along the way. And it's all because you didn't sort of stay stitch or press as you go, or you just skipping things, or don't do seam finishes at all because you think that's not necessary. But remember, we're just beginning, and it's likely that you don't quite understand why you're doing everything yet. You will, with time and practice, you will. And that is when you can start skipping things, because you'll actually know why, and you'll know, what the problems might be, and you can get around it. I've been sewing for 20 years, and I can at this point skip certain steps, but only because I really know what I'm doing, and I know that whatever I'm going to do after won't be any problems, etc. But when you're beginning, you just don't skip any steps, don't be lazy, do everything like the instructions tell you, because there is a reason that they're all there. It'll just take time, and you will understand why you're doing all of those things, I promise. This is the bonus one. It is kind of a skipping step, but not pressing as you go. I cannot stress this one enough. I hear so many stories of the same thing. This is kind of my story too. I remember my sewing teacher. It is standing over me, putting the mantra into my mind. You sew a seam, you finish it, and then you press it. And then you can move on to the next step. So I press upon this into all of my students, anyone who will listen, and I know that you more advanced people say the same thing as well, because we understand how important it is, and we want people to get good habits, because we know it's really hard to break bad habits, and wish that someone had told us how important this is. Press as you go. Let me say that one more time. You sew the seam, you would finish it, so finish the edges with the overlock or felled seam or whatever you're going to do, finish it, and then press it, and then you can move on to the next step. Makes everything a lot easier when that seam is all finished, it's neat, it's crisp, it's pressed in the right direction, and everything. I actually do have this video here on pressing tips for beginners. I definitely recommend you go watch that one after this one if you're particularly new as well. Just how important pressing really is and how much of a difference it makes to your garments is quite unbelievable when you first start sewing, but believe me, instantly make your garments look more professional when you do this. So here's my advice. It's one thing to, know all these things that we do wrong. It's another to, how do you then know what you're doing wrong or try and change? This is the biggest advice that I tell all of my students, and this is the big one overall that I wish that I had really been sort of taught and made to think this way in my dressmaking, is that if something goes wrong, I shouldn't say if, it always goes wrong, it never goes away, and that is okay. When something goes wrong, or you do a mistake, or it doesn't turn out the way that you want or you think it should, go backtrack and figure out why. Why didn't that work out the way that it should have or the way that you wanted? Was it the way that you sewed the fabric? Did it get stretched out without stay stitching along the way, and that's why that side is bigger than the other? Was it the way that it was pinned and it all got puckery? Was it actually all the way back to the cutting and you've actually accidentally cut one, like a little edge around it, and the pattern's bigger and therefore that's why the seams didn't match? Backtrack and figure out why. It's figuring out why is when you can actually get better habits and change what you're doing and understand how that happens and how it affects your garment is the single biggest thing, is the fast track to learning faster and getting better and better, just exponentially better at sewing when you figure out why things went wrong so you can do better next time. I wish that I didn't just learn that the hard way through having to figure it out myself, that is the key. The key to learning faster, I think, in sewing. And this is one of the reasons why I started Vintage Sewing School, is to help all of the new sewers of the world figure out all these things and learn from mine and hopefully everybody else's mistakes as well, so we can learn faster and all see more sewers in this world, because it's such a fun hobby, right? So tell me, what has been your biggest learning curves in learning to sew? Was it some of these? Do you see these in yourself? Or this is where I would love your help. Let me know below the biggest learnings that you've had, the epiphany moments, the biggest mistakes that you found that you're making because you just didn't know any better at the time. What are they? Tell me below in the comments, and make sure you go read them, of course, because there'll be so many little golden nuggets down there of tips. And I want to compile, I think, probably a big long video of this, and I might just feature your tip in there. So I really look forward to reading all of those. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you know a new sewer who could use this information, please share it with them, because sharing is caring after all. And until next time, bye.